Hi, my name is Brandon. We did our consumer behaviors research project on Coastal Carolina athletics for the football team.
I'm Noah Whitlock. We developed, implemented, and analyzed using an instrument to come up with a consumer behavior report for the Coastal Carolina University football team. We attended 3 different games in order to collect data. We attended the game versus Louisiana Monroe, App State, and Arkansas State. And while we were there, we used a data form that we created to record the information. And then throughout the semester, we developed trends and then came up with recommendations on how athletics could better use this data to better the football games. As you can see on the next slide here, this is the data form that we used. We used 3 different locations in the stadium. We used the student section, the home side, and the away side. And then we had 10 factors that we recorded. We had general factors such as attendance, temperature, things that were consistent throughout the 3 games, such as seat pricing and things like that. And then we had different, more specific factors such as concession lines, fan identification, the percentage of student fans versus non-student fans in each section. On the next slide, here we have pictures. This is for the Georgia Southern game more specifically, but the prices for seats were the same throughout. And then we also have the menu here for food for non-students and then for students. And so the reason that we used the data form is so we would have concrete evidence. We wanted to have evidence to go back and look at and view the information to come up with the trends that Ford and Sean will speak about later. And then we also use the form to represent what we saw and then what we could recommend.
I'm Mickey Beach. Before, it was good to see the data trends and the information we gathered. It's just nice to have a little bit of background on CCU football. In the late 90s, Coastal decided that they wanted to expand their athletic department and they wanted to add a football program. And it took about 5 years, but in 2003, we finally had our inaugural season. We were part of the Division I FCS. We were in the Big South Conference, and we were in that conference all the way up through 2016. 2016, we made the decision we were going to switch over to Division I FBS, and we were going to move it to the Sun Belt. So for 2016, we were in FCS independent for the transition year, so we weren't bowl eligible, we weren't championship eligible. We basically played a 12-game schedule against FBS and FCS teams. And then in 2017, we played in the Sun Belt Conference for the first year, and we're still presently there, obviously. On the next slide, in the Big South, Coastal football won 7 Big South championships. Because of their success, the university decided they were ready to take it to the next level. The Big South, wasn't challenging them enough, and they saw opportunities with fans and growth and money and scholarships and stuff like that. So they made a decision to move up. Like I said, 7 playoff appearances during that FCS time. Some notable alumni, which I think is important because these alumni come back and that helps draw attendance. Josh Norman, who plays for the Washington Redskins, just recently donated some money to the football department, and it's now the Mario and Josh Norman Fieldhouse where the weight room is. Mike Tolbert, Tyler Thigpen, and D'Angelo Henderson all played in the NFL, and Alex Ross has played in the CFL and just got drafted into a new organization. Their first year in the Sun Belt was a little bit, the downfall. They started the year 1-9. It wasn't looking too good, but they did win their last 2 games. And at the end of a very long year, Coastal kind of saw, all right, maybe we can do this. We can move forward. We have an opportunity to grow as a team. This year they started 5-3. It was a good year. Everybody was excited. They had 4 games left. They had to win 1 game, and they couldn't quite get that one last win to become bowl eligible, which was huge for the program and huge for the school, and that would have been a big stepping stone for the program moving forward. But even bigger than that, the school is struggling to fill seats and put people in the seats, and our attendance numbers are down. And this plays a big factor into how we can look at data, but it also shows us how we can improve how we want to bring people in and different ideas we can do for consumer research. The stadium, it's Brooks Stadium, located on campus. Last year, Phase 1 started. They increased the stadium size to 15,000 seats. As part of that transition from the FCS to the FBS, we were required to hold a stadium that could hold at least 22,000 people. So Phase 1 increased us to 50,000, and Phase 2 is under construction right now. And in August of 2019, they're hoping to have that project completed, and it will hold about 22,000 seats. It was built in 2003. It started as grass field, and about 5 years after that, they put in the teal turf, which is kind of what coastal football is known for, is having that teal turf as part of their program.
I'm Ford. I'm going to talk a little bit about the attendance trends that we noticed. As Noah stated previously, we documented attendance for 3 home games, and our highest attendance is the one that I'm going to focus on the most. This was the game that we played on November 3rd. It was against Appalachian State, and that's where we had our highest attendance on the year. That we have discovered that trend occurred because that was homecoming weekend, so we had a lot more fans in town, families, parents, alumni that came in. So as you can see, our percentage of non-student fans that were in attendance was up, and we had a lower percentage of fans that were leaving their seats during the game. Also, throughout the game, we noticed that 75% of our fans were still in their seats at the end of the game. We took attendance in the beginning of the game and at the end, and noticed how that percentage changed throughout the game. This game also had the lowest percentage of current students in the student section. So this we can explain by it was probably alumni or families that were joining their student fans in the student section. And the wait time for restrooms and concession stands was at its highest during this game, which can obviously be explained by the fact that there were more people in the stadium. So the wait time, the lines were a little bit longer at all of those things.
Hi, my name's Sean. This is just a picture of the game at Louisiana Monroe. As you can see, our home side's pretty packed. You can also see there's kind of construction going on. This was just right before halftime. After halftime, obviously attendance dropped a little bit, but kind of stayed the same throughout the game.
All right, so for recommendations on how to use this information moving forward for the athletic department, this information that we collected is very good for identifying strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and using those attributes as being able to better the program and kind of increase attendance. Next recommendation we have is to collect all information even if it doesn't seem important. So we want to keep an open eye on things, make sure that we're trying to collect all information so that we can analyze it later and maybe find something that we missed. Ask the right questions in order to avoid a false perception. This just means that try to figure out the right questions you want to ask so that something isn't hidden in the data moving forward. And then stay unbiased when collecting all that data and analyzing it. You're going to want to, even though it's going to maybe make your department look bad, you want to analyze that and try to make it better. So just stay unbiased when it comes to that stuff. And as well as revisit and analyze data later on. So whenever you're analyzing that data, implementing new strategies to improve it, you're going to want to come back and revisit at a later date and see if it's working, see if you have any more improvements for that as well. So,
Are there any questions?
Yeah. What do you think you can do to improve student attendance at coastal football games?
Yeah, so we talked about that a little bit in our group. One thing we discussed was having an earlier kickoff time around noon, 3:30. That would get more students to the games at an earlier time. Another thing we talked about was having a halftime show. It doesn't have to be anybody too big, but just having some sort of name there would kind of draw attendance, we'd think. So yeah.
And what factors do you wish you would have recorded data on?
One thing that we had talked about afterwards was that we didn't really get the chance to gather much data on parking, like the ease of getting to the fields once you parked, which we've talked about in class is a big factor with sporting events, but it was very difficult for us to do that as we were kind of more observationally gathering data than talking to people about their parking experiences and things of that nature.
And do you think the trends would be similar or different if you had collected the data over the whole season instead of just 3 games?
That's a good question. Obviously collecting more data, I think we had 6 home games. We ended up only playing 5 home games, we had to move our first home game to Campbell because of the hurricane. But obviously, collecting more data and having that available for us, I think we'd see a similar trend. I think maybe just a higher or lower percentage of differences, but I think the trends would be similar in most cases. I think maybe the only difference would be student tickets, because I think the first home game of the year tends to be the highest student section turnout, because obviously all the freshmen are coming in for the first time. It's the first Division I college football game, and they want to see that. So I think that probably would be where you would see the most drastic change, but I think they would be similar for the most part. I think Brandon wants to touch on that as well.
Yeah, and also with similarities with the trends and stuff, the trends that we'd find over the course of the season, if we had looked at more games, it would be more concrete and we would be able to rely on it better. I feel like just because there's more games and we'd see these trends more often, so we'd be able to rely on those and kind of figure those out.